Welcome to the True and Constant podcast presented by Gamma Phi Beta Sorority. Each month, incredible alumni of our sisterhood join us to celebrate their stories, experiences, and pearls of wisdom in Gamma Phi Beta and beyond. We are your hosts, Emma Remus of St. Louis University, Gamma Tau chapter, and Lex Stewart of Ohio University, Eta Omicron chapter.
Today, we are joined by our Gamma Phi Beta sisters, Mari Jones and Abby Wempe. Mari is the president at Emeritus Vineyards and an alumna of Colgate University, Delta Tau chapter. Abby Wempe is the owner of Along Came Abby Weddings and Events and is an alumna of Kansas State University, Beta Upsilon chapter. Please join us in welcoming Abby and Mari to the show. Thank you all so much for coming.
Yay!
Thank you for having us.
Oh my gosh, picture this. 10-year-old Emma watching The Parent Trap, just living for the winery, wedding world fantasies. And here I am living it, talking to two experts in these fields. It's amazing. It's like a movie come to life.
I did used to tell people I lived in the Parent Trap house, which is absolutely not true.
Oh, but you can dream. You can dream.
I bet it's a lot closer to the Parent Trap house than my house. I'll tell you that. So you both are such accomplished businesswomen. I'm just so curious to hear about all of your experiences, all the things you've learned along the way. So tell us a little bit more about how you both got into your respective fields and what made you kind of want to keep staying in those fields.
I'll take the lead on that one. I am the youngest of all sisters. And growing up, I had a mom who was a nurse and a dad who was a golf pro. So going to work with my dad as a golf pro, I always saw events, and it was just the excitement of the country club before the holidays or a wedding or Easter brunch, all those things that made it such a fun atmosphere. So I always loved events. I love theatrics and just kind of the hospitality side of things. So grew up in that. Definitely didn't ever think you could make a living at it until I went to college for business and took a corporate job and knew that I was not made for boxes and corporate life. I would imagine most entrepreneurs would say the same thing. So just knew that that was not the role that would work for me. I was lucky enough to see my big sisters get married as well, and how just like organized, with my mom being a nurse, she's such a caretaker. So how organized she was and how she kind of took them through the process. So I got to see the behind the scenes. And then later on in life, ended up working at a golf course. My dad's a golf pro, like I said, my husband's a golf pro. So just something I was comfortable being around, and started doing their events. And it was like, it was exactly where I was supposed to be. There was no, I didn't go to school for it or anything. I fell into it, and then, couldn't imagine getting out of it. So,
well, my story is, a family business. So I took over Emeritus Vineyards from my father about 5 years ago. And I got into the business a little bit, not by accident, but it wasn't my intention, certainly going to college or even shortly after. I fell in love with wine when I was 12, but I just didn't think that was going to be my career path. And I started to get much more interested after I graduated from Colgate and was living in Colorado. And I like to say that I would give my dad very helpful advice from afar. And after enough advice given, his answer was, if you want to do it, you have to do it yourself. So you can come back and work for me, or you can, basically can it. And so I decided to come and work for him. And that was in 2012. So I wasn't sure how long I would stay. And, I think probably within a year or two, it was like, I couldn't imagine my life doing anything else.
Oh,
It's beautiful. In both of your responses, I heard you both say that you didn't think that the careers that you had right now were possible. I'm curious, what shifted that for you and what made it seem like a possibility? Because obviously you're here now. So Mari, I'm curious, and then we'll pass it to Abby, but what made you realize that this was possible for you?
Yeah, I think once I came here and started working, I realized that it was definitely a legacy and a role that I could thrive in. It's, a little bit of that rebellion to want to do something different than your parents, or at least that's how I experienced it. So,
For sure.
I thought that I was going to, escape and do something different. And I think it just was something when I fell in love with wine, I fell in love with the fact that wine really connects people through history, through regions. If you learn about a wine region, you're really learning about the history of the area, the people that are there, the climate, how we interact with the climate. When you taste wine, you're tasting wine from a place that people made, and it can really transport you. And I think actually then working in it just made me reignite that love and that I had, and being able to, I guess, kind of thrive in the role made me want to stay for longer.
No, I love that. I want to have a glass of wine with you now. I'm like,
Same.
Come on out and visit anytime.
Mine was this. Yeah, it felt natural and organic. And it was the first time in a role, not because obviously corporate wasn't my jam. So having a job that I just felt like I knew what to do and got to use creativity and my brain, and didn't set out to do it, but it did. It just like one thing after another kept, every time I thought, why am I doing this? Why am I working these long hours? Then it was like something awesome would come. Somebody would call and say, hey, can you do an event for us that was like a dream client? So it just literally felt like it was constantly being put in my face that like, this is where you're supposed to be.
Yeah, you're both in very sort of creative and hospitality, guest experiences. Like, I feel like both of your industries are such experience oriented areas, which I think is awesome. There's such a level of connectivity you can make there. What would some of the misconceptions be about some of the entrepreneurship paths that you've taken?
I feel like there's so many entrepreneurs. If you haven't done it, it's the hours. Like, I don't know. And I don't know what yours is like, but I feel like I get asked all the time, like, what's it like to only work on Saturdays? Or it must be nice to not have to work during I'm working during the week and on weekends. There's no break for entrepreneurs. There's no clocking out. There's no clocking in. And I know people know that, but I think like the hospitality side of things, it just feels like so much more of a hobby to people. So they don't understand that it's like truly just as much work, if not more, than a traditional job.
Oh, definitely. I would say that, as being a leader of a company or, owning your own company, hospitality or not, it's just there isn't a break. And you sometimes have to kind of create that space for yourself to have time. But in general, your schedule is not always yours, right? You have to work around whether you have employees or clients or business partners, other kind of invested partners. But yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah, it's not as simple as like you just clock in on Saturdays and get to
Right.
go home after that. What a beautiful world that these folks are living in. That would love to have entrepreneurship look that way. Not so much. So obviously there are challenges with being an entrepreneur, but it sounds like this is sort of the industry or the lifestyle that works really well for both of you, Abby and Mari. Like you talked about verging career paths and finding entrepreneurship. So what are you seeing as some of the benefits of establishing and maintaining your own business? What are the benefits to you of entrepreneurship?
I would say for me, at least, in my industry, it's a lot of women. And yes, we have men on our team, but getting to create like a powerhouse of women who could take on the world, in my opinion, has been very awesome. Especially our lead planner is a Gamma Phi as well from a different university. So that was even
awesome.
Fun. Yes. So she was at KU, but getting to create your own network, I think is probably the coolest piece. Like looking back over 11 years of doing this, that is like the coolest thing to look back at.
Networks of strong women are so important. For me, carrying on the family legacy that my dad started has been a lot more rewarding than I expected, which I think is one of the things that really kept me in this when I, after moving back all those years ago. And it's been really rewarding to see our company grow and continue to provide a livelihood for all of our employees. I mean, that's what really drives me every day, is making sure that payroll is met and that all of those families can pay their rent, pay their mortgage, go buy groceries. That's really what's driving me, as well as kind of the bigger piece of the family legacy and family farming in Sonoma County, which is also important to me.
Yeah, I think that from both of you, I hear a really strong sense of maintaining good relationships with the people you work with. And that network piece is so important. And I know you both have sort of different entryways into how you got into your business. So for Abby, how did you establish that network pretty much on your own out of nowhere? And then for Mari, what are your tips for going about maintaining the respect that you feel like has maybe been established, but wanting to maintain it and grow it even more amongst people you work with?
Well, for starting it, I always say the first 3 years of starting a business are the worst. And if you can get through those, you can get through anything. But I'm lucky to where our clientele is typically, majority of our clientele is women, whether they are brides or planning an event for their corporation or a launch party or something. So having that network from the beginning of like one client, which refers you to one more client, which refers you to one more client. So just like that network and how that just like slowly grew, I guess would be what I owe the success to. So.
Yeah, for me, I came in with a lot of established business partnerships, so distributors and suppliers for glass and corks and things like that. But it's also been really important for me to kind of create those relationships myself. And also, people retire, people move on. And so just because maybe my father or somebody else in our company had a relationship doesn't mean that relationship will go on forever. And there's also a pretty big community. We're pretty tight knit, but we are a community within kind of our region, and there's kind of different layers to it, but being able to build and find mentors and things like that, and really build a network of pretty awesome people here to rely on for help and support and advice is also really important. So it's, I might have had more introductions than somebody who just starting, but a lot of times you might not be taken as seriously because A, as a young woman, B, okay, well, you're just the daughter. That's fine. So it's really proving yourself to be a thoughtful and, important strategic partner for people. And then also building the network so that you actually have the people that you can rely on and trust and work with.
I think my question kind of goes back to what we were talking about a moment ago with like the misconceptions around entrepreneurship, where like if you tell someone you're an entrepreneur, they have sort of this idea of what they think an entrepreneur does if they don't really have a frame of reference. So can you tell us, what does a day in the life look like for you? So like if someone is just like out in the world, no clue what does entrepreneurship mean? What do you do on a day-to-day? What does sort of a day in the life look like for you? We'll start with Mari and then go to Abby.
Yeah. I mean, in reality, you're working for a company still, and you're working for your employees if you have any, if you have a larger company. There is no typical day in my life. It depends on the season, of course. I mean, seasonality is big for agriculture, for wine. There are some more glamorous things that I do, like, travel to foreign countries for sales trips, or even all around the US. There are less glamorous things like, working overnight with our crew in the vineyard to pick grapes and deliver them to our clients that we sell grapes to, or help crush them in the winery. There are days where you're just staring at spreadsheets, wondering how your cash flow is going to work for the month or the week or the year, whatever it might be. And then there are days where you're also like playing HR and trying to figure out if, you're in compliance with all of the California OSHA codes and things like that. There are days where you're a government lobbyist and you're calling your congressman and saying, have you actually thought about this regulation that you're thinking about passing? Because that's really going to affect my business. There are days when you go out to lunch and, build that network that you have. It's anything and everything.
Yeah. I think even the distinction that like there is no one set way your day looks is still a really helpful frame of reference for people. Yeah. I think that's because a lot of people just kind of assume it's like, oh, but I'll just do my day job, but for myself. And it's not quite like that.
You're wearing so many hats.
Exactly. Yeah. There's literally no typical day. I always try to tell people that when you own your own company, and granted, I've been in it for quite a while, but when I first started, I always told people I'm the janitor and the CFO. Like, you want to know what I do in a day? I do everything a janitor does in a day, and I do everything a CFO would do in a day. and you have to get it done because there's nobody else to fall back on. So now my days look a lot different. We've been blessed to build an amazing team. So a lot of what I'm doing is making sure that they have what they need, or helping them fight a fire, or, hey, here's a problem that's come up. Can you help me solve it? So a lot of what I'm doing is the networking and connection piece, because it takes a lot of people to make successful events happen, a lot of vendors, but a lot of mine is just pouring into my team and making sure that they're running their departments, and that they have what they need to make all that happen. And of course, the spreadsheets and the payroll and the not so fun stuff as well.
Yeah. So, because you both are seeing every sort of part of the supply chain of all of this, like every single component of your business, I have a feeling you're not just your business, but the industry itself really well that you're in. What would you say that you're seeing as some sort of the biggest challenges that both of your respective industries are facing right now, from your experience contacting so many different people and then working with customers?
How much time do you have, Emma?
Yeah, I think the biggest one that we're seeing, and everyone's seeing it, the cost of everything right now is really hard. When I started planning events, the average Midwest wedding was $27,000. Now the average Midwest wedding is $87,000.
87,000.
If you think about what that does, but think about the grocery store now. Think about what your think about the McDonald's costs. So if you picture, then you have a caterer, you have to buy wine, you have to buy beer and flour, like it is astronomical. And so I think that's the hardest piece. And that's just a wedding, but a corporate event too. There's so many corporate events that we do annually that they're like, we want to take care of our employees and we want them to have a fabulous night, but we also don't want to spend $1 million just to be able to give our team a night to enjoy themselves. So I feel like right now, so much of what we're doing is trying to figure out, like, thinking outside of the box, or how can we do an event that's super fun and maybe get away from some formalities so that we can still give them an experience. And Midwest, like, we just don't have a lot of the amenities or activities or things to go do. We don't have a vineyard to go hang out at or anything. So I think like that piece is hard, is justifying the costs that are now associated with really everything in the hospitality. Really everyone's life right now is just crazy expensive. And so when we are not a necessity, right? Like most hospitality industry, we're not a necessity. You do not have to have events. And so changing the mindset from like everybody, after COVID, everyone was they just were dying for connection and to have events and to be together again. And now everybody's like, holy cow, we really want to do it. It's really, really expensive. So that has been like across the board, I feel like the biggest challenge, like right now that we're facing, just the cost of everything escalating so much. And you want to take care of your clients, and you can't do events for free. And so it's a hard spot to be in.
Yeah. Inflation is tough. I mean, when the cost of your glass goes up 40% in a year, you're just like, oh, great. And, if you want to continue to sell wine, you have to absorb some of that, which lowers your profit margin, which just makes it harder to do business. And we're seeing a lot of the same pressures. We're also seeing, just in general, declining consumption of alcohol across age groups, across incomes. We make a more luxury product. So again, not a necessity. Although I would argue that weddings and wine, weddings and events, I mean, all of those things are really necessary to enjoy life to the fullest. But yeah, it's like, how do you prioritize that spending for experiential things and the luxury pieces in your life? So we're seeing a lot of that. We're also seeing, at least in Sonoma and in California, we're seeing some pretty big regulatory things coming down that are really potentially costing a lot of money to small businesses. So that's been a challenge. And yeah, declining consumption, I think, is the biggest for my industry, for the wineries.
Yeah, that's so interesting to hear. I would not have necessarily expected that, or at least not so drastically where it'd be noticeable. But that's really interesting.
It's declining consumption in alcohol and declining consumption in wine. So there's a lot more options these days. You have RTDs, you have seltzers, you have more wines than ever, more beers, more craft breweries, et cetera. But you also just see declining consumption across pretty much every age bracket in general of alcohol, and then certainly of wine.
Yeah. There's been like a huge surge of like non-alcoholic drinks that have like really popped off recently. So I can imagine that that's swaying some of the buying there. That's so interesting. So if we put a pin in the cost aspect of things and hope and dearly pray that this is a temporary moment in time and this is not a forever challenge for you all, what are some of the other challenges that you face on like a day-to-day as entrepreneurs? I heard you both mention like you manage teams. Also like the level of just like managing your own time could also be a level of a challenge.
Oh, those boundaries.
So I'm wondering, what are some of the other, we'll say like smaller day-to-day challenges you experience as entrepreneurs?
I would say the time management piece. I genuinely love what I do. And so it's easy to get wrapped up in it. But I also genuinely love my husband and I genuinely love my 3 children. And so balancing, I think, would be the thing that like day to day that I personally struggle with the most, is just figuring out like, what days do my team need me? What days do I need to put the mom hat on? What days do I need to be a wife? What days do I need to be a friend? Like, just juggling. It's no different than anyone else. But I think when you're an entrepreneur, it's extra hard because you're so used to taking care of everybody else that you forget that like you have to make yourself priority somewhere in there. So yeah, that juggle of like, what boxes am I checking today? And what do I have to just live with and let go that it's not going to happen today and I can wake up and do it tomorrow.
Yeah, I think I would have a very similar thing. Like Abby said, I genuinely love what I do and I really wouldn't want to be doing anything else. And, you know, what drives me, like I said earlier, is really making sure that everybody has that paycheck every 2 weeks. And there are times where, I guess my biggest goal that I've told my team is I want to create a more sustainable schedule for myself. And that is not going to look the same every week or every month, but that's kind of my biggest challenge, very similar to Abby. It's just, how do you not burn yourself out every week or every month or every 3 months and hit that wall where you, need your sabbatical. So that more sustainable scheduling is definitely my biggest challenge.
Absolutely. I could see that being a challenge in like what you were saying, Abby, of like balancing all the different hats that you wear, not only as an entrepreneur, but also as a person. Like you're wearing a lot of different hats just in life. That's tough to manage.
Yeah. So that makes me think, but there's a lot of challenges on the day to day, a lot of things that it sounds like you work on to make a more sustainable lifestyle, more sustainable business. And you are sort of spearheading it like on your own with some support, I'm sure, but as a leader, picture this, you're an entrepreneur and you're starting out and you're establishing things, or you're maintaining maybe a smaller business that had been started and growing it. I want to hear both of your thoughts on competition and sort of like making yourself stand out so that someone chooses your wine, so that someone chooses your planning services. Like how do you make yourself sort of stand out in the midst of other entrepreneurs?
This is terrible, but like what's the saying, the flower that blooms doesn't watch that other flower, or however that looks. Like, I just do my thing. Like we're not out to win someone over the competition. Like I feel like everything happens how it's supposed to be. And if you're supposed to be our clients, then I'm going to meet you along the way and we're going to hit it off, or you're going to give us a call and we're going to click, or we're not. So I guess I don't pay as much attention to it as maybe I should, but I also feel like when you're an entrepreneur, you don't really have time. Like if you're doing what you love to do and you're paying attention to what you do, you don't have time to worry about your competition. Like there's no time left for that. You're going to do what you do because it's what you're good at, and put your head down. And I don't know, I guess I just feel like paying attention to competition just has never paid off. So
yeah, that sounds like sort of like a best match philosophy, right? Like people that share your values, finding you maybe. Yeah, that sounds like a cool like approach to it, because I think it can get overwhelming, whether you're an entrepreneur or not, trying to be like, how can I stand out? But no, that I feel like even in my own experience, when you feel like your values truly align with someone else's, something just happens where those cooperative
way better match, way better clientele. Like it just.
the wine industry is, our competitions are also our friends. Our competitors are also our friends.
Right.
And we do a lot of co-marketing, and we have trade organizations that we work on together. We put on big events together for all of our consumers. And so there's more of like the rising tide lifts all boat mentality in Sonoma County than oh my God, I'm out to get you, or I need this, or nobody's ever going to drink one winery's wine for the rest of their life. And if they did, it should certainly be Emeritus, but it's unlikely that would happen. So, our friends are really, it's not so much paying attention to what they're doing in terms of what does their email marketing look like, but really just, working together to bring awareness to our region and the varietals that we grow. As our company, we sell grapes to 13 other wineries, and we make wine ourselves. So like in theory, all of those wineries are a competition, but they're also some of our closest friends. And when somebody comes to Sonoma and says, where should I go wine tasting? I'll send you a list of 100 wineries if you would want, but it's like, I want to show you, and I want you to love Sonoma County as much as I do. And that includes coming to visit, but that's also just if you're out at a restaurant or at a wine shop and you're looking for some great wines, like I would happily recommend so many of my quote unquote competitors, just because we're all friends.
That's a really cool aspect too that I didn't necessarily think of. I think when you hear the word entrepreneur, it has this inherent loneliness to it of I'm on my own and I'm going to set out, embark on this, but you're not an island and you do have this network and you're a team with other people. So that's definitely very cool to hear. And I think encouraging for people who are maybe intimidated on being a little bit more independent in their industry.
And I think that there's also something we can kind of glean from both of your stories in that, like, Abby, I'm hearing that like you're like not super focused on the competitor piece, and that frees you up to probably put time into the things that actually matter to you and bring you
right? Like if my competitor is awesome, then be awesome, girl. I can't.
Yeah.
I can't compete with that. If they're cheaper, then be cheaper. I can't do that either. So it's just definitely frees my mind up for things I can't think about.
I think as someone, so I took the leap into entrepreneurship myself over the last 2 years and started a private coaching practice. And in that, I've definitely fallen into the trap of like comparing myself to competitors, and it gets overwhelming and it gets paralyzing if you do that. So I very much want to be in your camp of like, just do what you do, and the people that will come to you will come to you. Because I think that it can be a trap for some like early entrepreneurs to fall into like, well, what is everyone else doing? How can I get to where everyone else is? But like you are your own secret sauce in a way. And then with Mari, I heard this piece of like community over competition, like viewing it less as like a competition that everyone has to win and more that like we're all sort of participating in different ways. So I think there's something really cool that we can glean from both of those.
Hi, listeners. I'm Jessica Budjanowski, and welcome to our True Connection segment. It's your source for Gamma Phi Beta information, special stories of our sisterhood, and tools to get you involved. Now, while I'm listening to Mari and Abby, one word keeps coming to mind: legacy. These women started their job to help create connections and solidify a legacy for themselves and for others. This drive to preserve a family legacy or those special moments and memories for others and to support their employees made me think about the foundation of our sisterhood and the legacy of our badge. As a founding member of the Zeta Xi chapter at the College of Idaho, I clearly remember the moment I received my badge. At initiation, the international president, Alcina Rice, looked me in the eyes and placed that beautiful black crescent moon cradling the Greek letters of Gamma, Phi, and Beta on my left shoulder. I knew in that moment my sisterhood was for a lifetime, and I never wanted to lose that unique badge. I was carrying on an incredible legacy of our sisterhood. Plus, no one ever wants to lose something that was designed by Tiffany's in New York. Though if I did, I know my sisters could help. Did y'all know that there's a special group of Gamma Phi Beta sisters that are dedicated to preserving the sorority's history? They locate and recover lost badges that are online and in brick and mortar stores to ensure our badges can be recovered and returned to the sister or the sorority. This group, called the Crescent Catchers, started in 2002 and have rescued over 400 badges. For more information on the Crescent Catchers, you can join their Facebook group at G Phi B Crescent Catchers. Now, let's get back to Mari and Abby. I'm Jessica Budjanowski. Let's keep connected until next time.
So I heard you both mention that one of the struggles and challenges was on like time management and building time for yourself or caring for yourself. Obviously, this is always a work in progress for people. Like we're never going to like get it and it's going to be like set forever. I wish that was the case. But thinking about how you currently like manage your time and energy, what are the ways that you make yourself a priority now? What does that look like for you?
Oh, I live and die by my calendar. So I will put everything in there down to like take lunch, like leave the winery, go eat lunch, or, take the afternoon off to, go see my dad or whatever it might be. I live and die by my calendar. My team knows that. So if you put even the small things on, even if you move them within the week, as long as you don't delete them, you can shuffle your time around, but you just don't want to delete those things that are important to you.
I love that.
Like that. Okay. I'll be moving stuff then. I would say, and it goes through phases, but like the 3 kids on top of the job is obviously adds some extra chaos to my days. But the biggest thing for me to help has been prioritizing like what truly has to get done and what is just in your mind that you want to do it. And you'll feel better if you check it off a box, but you can sleep even if it's not checked off like the to-do list. So the prioritizing thing I would say is what's been able to, and as I've done it longer and longer, it's easier and easier to prioritize because you know what you could make happen the next day. But I would say that's the biggest thing that's given me like more peace of mind than when I like go home at night. I can be home at night and not home until the kids are in bed and then working on quotes and updates. Like it's on my to-do list for tomorrow and I'll take care of it then. So forcing myself with some reminders from my husband to do that.
Yeah. And I advocate for delegating and outsourcing. So even if you don't have a team that you're working with, that you've built a company or have a company with a lot of people, what can you outsource to third parties to help you get things done, to free up your brain, to do the creative things that you really want to do that make you, like Lex said, the secret sauce to your own company.
Yeah. The word you said, creativity, just was like ringing through my head about making space for that creativity. That was something that I was kind of wondering when I heard you both talking. You're both in such exciting fields. I love a wedding more than anything. A glass of wine is so exciting. How do you maintain your excitement? How do you not get jaded or burnt out by all these like quote unquote fun things that you're constantly having involvement in? How do you sort of keep that joy and fresh perspective still going?
I think at least for our industry, like it's changing so much. So that always is there's always something new and exciting. There's always a new trend in food. There's always a new colors or like styles that we're seeing. And then each of our clients has such a different personality. So getting to like, even though it's the same steps and the same things, like it literally never feels the same because it's all for somebody who has such a different personality or different relationship. So definitely our clients and the new trends keep it fresh for us.
Yeah. I mean, wine is thousands of years old and we haven't gotten sick of it yet. So I'm just one in a long line of wine people that hasn't gotten sick of it and still gets inspired by it. The community that we have continues to inspire me too. The group that we have here in Sonoma and Russian River Valley is just really passionate and forward thinking and exciting people to be around. And you can feed off of other people's energy too. Kind of sounds like you do that too, Abby, with your clients. Like everybody's unique and brings a new perspective. And kind of the more that you can weave that into your work, I think brings you fresh energy when you need it.
That's beautiful. I heard you both talk a little bit about your respective teams. So I'm curious, how did you all go about like enlisting people to be on your team? How do you choose who is on your team? Like, what are the thoughts, the things that go into that process for you?
What's recruitment like?
Yeah.
My team is an eclectic group of people who, like, through life stages, there's no one like I post on Indeed or anything like that. It's truly people I've met through the years who have either said I'm interested in it, or one was Bree, one of our planners. She was a wedding photographer, and I worked with her at an event, and I just like, you know, when you meet somebody and you're just like, I don't know why, but I like need to know you. I just had watched her work and I was so like enamored by her. She was a farm girl and she just had this great personality and was kind of like witty. And I don't know, they're just all of my people. I feel like I've had a weird like calling to want to know them, or it's just happened so perfectly where they've been like our lead planner. She literally was like, I really want to do events. She was a school counselor and a Gamify as well. And she came to the first wedding and was like this, it was like instantly, I was like, you are going to be amazing at this. Like you have the counseling skills that I wish I had to get clients through all of these events. So they all, I feel like, I don't, you know, religious or not, but I feel like God has literally put them in my life because that's where they're supposed to be. So it's all been extremely organic meeting all my team.
Yeah. I think too, you want to find people who complement you and can also have different areas of strength and different experiences and backgrounds that you don't have, so that they can have different perspectives, but also so that you can all complement each other and build something better, right? You want the whole to be greater than the sum of the parts.
Yeah, it's so interesting you say that, because I've even think back to some of the teams I've been on, and they say that they do interview for people who they see as stronger in something that they're not strong in, or we've even taken tests. I was somewhere and we took like a sort of a strengths-based test, and one of the bosses was like, "Oh, I'm a little disappointed that we're not more varied." So there is something to be said for some of that variety, but also having good chemistry and a good group dynamic. Because if we're all the same, you know, we're just going to run into the same holes.
Yeah, a lot of times people hire somebody who, you know, looks like them. And I mean that not necessarily physically, but like looks like them on paper, has a similar resume, a similar career trajectory, job experience, type of school that they went to, et cetera. And while there can certainly be good things that can come from that, to have that varied backgrounds and the varied experiences, life experiences, I think just makes a stronger team.
Yeah. And talk about like transferable skills for this former school counselor that works with Abby, right? Like I would not have thought of the pipeline from school counselor to wedding planner, or like, you know, working in the wedding industry. But like, once you said it, it makes total sense. Like you're having to counsel people through like, it's a very exciting time in their lives, but a very stressful time.
Crisis, they've got it.
If you can handle second graders, you can definitely. So you're fine.
You can handle anything if you can handle second graders.
That is true. Yeah. And she can handle them. I wouldn't last a day in elementary school. So.
Well, variety seems like the spice of making things kind of flow and fun and fresh and innovative. I want to circle back or touch upon something you said, Abby, with trends. What are some of the emerging trends that both of you are seeing pop up in your fields?
We're seeing people make things, and I think this kind of goes like with the cost, but it's actually turning out great. People using their like favorite things. So whether it be a drink or a food, you know, maybe their first date was a Chick-fil-A or whatever, and we're bringing out trays. So just making it really unique to them, so that it's just more of a fun experience. I feel like we're getting away from formalities, which in general, we all have been for a while. But that allows us to create something even more special for our clients, because then there's no boxes. Emily Post isn't going to be there to tell us how inappropriate whatever we're doing is. We can just make it a fun evening. And so that's been like the best trend that we've seen, is everyone just creating experiences and something fun for their guests to do, whether it's a wedding or a party.
I love that. I bet that's so special to be like, have this personalized experience. And if you took a picture of a bunch of different weddings, to have their friends go, oh yeah, that's their wedding.
That's the best. When people walk in, we're always like, that's the best. We get to hear them. Oh my gosh, this looks exactly like so-and-so. And you're like, yes, they're right. So
what came to my mind, I mean, there's so many ways I could have gone with this answer, but what came to my mind was different packaging that we're seeing in the wine industry, which I'm sure you've seen too, yes. From, bag in a box to aluminum cans to lighter weight glass, which is kind of where we live in the industry. There's a big trend towards more sustainable packaging, and that means a lot of different things. And it's, really complicated if you want to get into like chemistry, but that's what came to my mind.
Interesting. Yeah, I've got to say, I'm a big label junkie myself. I'm a big label fan myself. If I'm at a store, I'm like, oh, look at that packaging. There is something about the thoughtfulness put into the delivery mechanism, reflecting the thoughtfulness put into the product inside of it, for sure.
So we've talked about a lot of the different facets of like being an entrepreneur, from like, what even is this that you do, all the way to like, how do you create a team with the thing that you're doing? If you could, I'm thinking of the sisters or folks who are listening who are maybe curious about entrepreneurship or maybe like dipping their toes into that world. What's one piece of advice you'd give to someone who is thinking about starting their own business or starting this like path as an entrepreneur?
Find your support system. Make sure that you have mentors and other resources outside of, just your own experience to give you support through it. Doesn't have to be financial, but make sure that you have people in your life and people in your business that will give you their time and energy.
Give yourself grace in terms of you're not an expert. You're new. You're brand new at starting. So, have a plan that gives yourself years to figure it out and not a month or months to figure it out. It's going to take a long time to get used to running a business. And as soon as you grow, then you aren't just learning how to run a business anymore. You're learning how to run a team and a business. And then you grow it. Like, give yourself, time to figure it out, and the understanding that you're not going to be an expert the second that you start, even if it's an industry you're super comfortable in.
Amazing. Yeah, I know we're kind of wrapping up towards the end of our time, but I do think that those little moments are just as important as some of these bigger, overarching, goal-oriented things. So I'm curious, Abby, what is one of your favorite, most recent on-the-job wedding moments? And then Mari, what is one of your favorite, most recent on-the-job wine moments that you've had recently?
I think one that just comes to mind and was really exciting is we just did a wedding in Cancun for a client who actually know her parents. They live across the street from us. So we got to be friends and planners, and it just kind of was all the things, but getting to see her parents, who I love and adore, get to enjoy, get to help them through that for somebody who I care about more than just a normal, bride's parents, which of course we care about too, but getting to be there for something so special like that, I think was just the solidification of oh yeah, this is not lying. This is a dream job. People aren't just saying that, but obviously there's bad days, but yeah, days like that make up for a lot of it.
Yeah. One of the cool things that I've gotten to do this year is do some sales trips in Europe. And I just always get pretty blown away to see the wine kind of on the other side of the world, and to see our label and a reflection of our team and 25 years of work that has gone into making this company enjoyed and revered by, customers and somms and importers kind of all over. So being able to have those experiences abroad, and this year it was in Europe, is just always very special.
I love it. Well, Emma, do you have any other larger questions before we jump to our rapid fire questions?
I guess my biggest sort of tie up of everything is, if there was one thing that you hope the people in the audience today do as a result of our conversation, what would it be?
Obviously, buy and enjoy Emeritus wines.
Yes.
That's easy.
Yes. Enjoy it at an event with lots of people, but yes, exactly.
I see a partnership here. I think that we could do a little wine wedding combo.
Hey, we could have recorded this on location, just to be clear. But
It's true. All of us have a glass of wine in hand. That would have been
fabulous.
perfect. Yeah.
I know that was a big miss on my part. I should have gotten some to you.
So I guess now we are going to get into our rapid fire questions. This is a way we sort of do a resolution of all of our episodes, a fun little get to know you that we like to see how the answers vary amongst all of our guests.
So the goal of these questions is like, we're going like off the cuff. So gut reactions, that's what we're looking for. What Gamify value resonates most with you? Love, labor, learning, or loyalty?
love. I mean, I help people show their love for a living. Obviously, having babies of my own and getting to celebrate a marriage, I would say that is, continuous throughout my life.
I would say learning. I never want to stop learning. It drives me every day.
Love it. What is something that brought you joy this week?
Spending time with my dad.
Oh, sweet.
Watching our team, one of our planners that has taken over, watching her succeed in a crazy busy week.
By the way, that just like inspired me to hear just like the family business connection and like a work related memory that brought you joy. That is just so cool to see like the fulfillment in everyday life. That's so cool.
Also, I didn't think to mention this, but both of your Gamify values directly correlate with your businesses because you have love for the weddings and you have learning with Emeritus Vineyards.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. What is something new that you've learned?
Today?
This could be
a second ago, a week ago, a month ago, a year ago.
I would say trust has been the biggest thing that being an entrepreneur being a successful entrepreneur at the beginning, it was really hard. You get used to doing everything by yourself. And now trusting our team to do what they're here to do, I think has been the biggest like learning curve for me, but also the most rewarding learning experience I've had.
I was going to go into minimum salary rates in California, but
listen, if that's what you've learned, we are honoring that.
That's what I learned today. That's what that was a large part of my day was making sure that I was compliant and everybody's payment.
We love fair wages. What is something that you would go back and tell your college self?
I think I would just tell myself to try to make more meaningful connections with our professors. We had a really, really small, really intimate school, and I don't think I took advantage of that as much.
I would say enjoy it. And I loved, living in the house and all of that, but I don't feel like I feel like I could have put in a lot more and gotten out a lot more of Gamify. And so that's like one thing I wish I would have done more, especially like senior year. I felt like I was a bit checked out. I wish I would have been a little more involved. So if you're in college, be as involved as you can in your sorority.
Heck yeah. It's both answers were involvement in community, right? Like community in the space of like learning and professors, community in the space of sorority. Absolutely.
Connections are key.
Yeah. And perfect segue. Thank you for that, Abby. What was the moment that you chose Gamify?
Oh, I know for sure.
Ooh, I can't wait to hear it.
So I was always a camp counselor. My summers during college. And I remember a friend asked me if I was going to cut off my friendship bracelets before recruitment. And I said, well, no, my campers made these for me. That would be like the most horrible thing that I could ever do in the world. And when I walked into Gamify, 3 women surrounded me and said, oh my gosh, are you a camp counselor? I said, of course I am. And they said, wow, come in, learn about our philanthropy. And oh my gosh, we are too. And I was like, these are my people.
Oh, I love that.
That's beautiful.
Ours, we had our RoGam had given us advice, just like, yes, you need to love who's in the house and who you're talking to, but you also need to love the girls that you're waiting in line at the house for, because those are going to be your sorority sisters. That's your pledge class. And so consistently at Gamify, I just remember like that lineup. It was such a unique group of girls, but it was the most fun group of girls. And we had just even a blast, like walking there and waiting in line. So that was like, I knew it was going to be a good fit.
What was one moment in Gamify that prepared you for where you are today?
Well, I led the Sunshine Committee in Gamma Phi, which
Love
was our
it.
like
Sunshine chair.
Yep. Yes. So just to be like goofy and get everybody happy after like long days of planning for recruitment and work week and everything. So not that we weren't a group of goofy, rowdy girls in general, but getting to lead that I always thought was just fun to come into a stressful situation and be like, okay, we're all stressed out, but let's enjoy and have some fun. So getting to come in and kind of take the pressure off was always really fun.
Wow, we didn't have that. I would have loved to do that.
I would come to your Sunshine Committee.
In terms of something at Gamma Phi, I think honestly, it was just the way that we all worked together to accomplish our goals and create a supportive network of community and friendship. I think, there wasn't necessarily one thing, but just that experience.
Final question. If you could nominate any person in the world for membership to Gamma Phi Beta, who would it be?
Does it mean that we get to meet them?
I wish. I mean, we'll promise that. Absolutely.
Yeah. If we're living the fantasy, let's live the fantasy. You get to be their big, you can initiate them. I don't know.
Wow. Oof. I know. Like, do we go Oprah?
Oprah would make a phenomenal Gamma Phi. I think that's a good
I think so.
All right. We agree.
Okay,
Oprah.
She's in.
She's all four of us collectively nominating Oprah. Thank you.
Welcome to Gamma Phi Beta, Oprah. True and Constant is brought to you by Gamma Phi Beta Sorority. If you enjoyed this podcast, please consider giving a gift to the 150th by going to gammaphibeta.org/150/podcast. Special thanks to our co-hosts, Emma Remus and Lex Stewart. Jessica Bujanowski for the True Connection segment. Our editor, John Haight, and executive producers, Megan Kruger and Shauna Wilson. Our theme music, Panko Breaded Pork Chops, written by Michael Thomas Gager, performed and produced by Mikey Gager. Thank you for listening.